So I want you all to think back. This could be a birthday, could be a Christmas morning, to the first bike that you ever got. Could be a tricycle, could be a two-wheeled bike, but I think that probably put a smile on your face. I've got a couple of photos to show what exactly that means to different people. This is a real photo from Mike Amos's family. From some of the 20-year member ladies, they might remember something more like this. And what's a bike without a bell? Moving forward a little bit more, to many of you, just being on a bike means fun, freedom, the chance to get out, to move about your neighborhood, to make friends, to have fun. And this is really what being on a bike feels like. And in fact, it's interesting I found this particular slide. It also talks about what it's like to give a bike to other people, which Chart has done with a bike building activity in the past. My own biking was tricycles and training wheels. My first bike for my paper route, bike I had in college that I kept for a long time. Got a basket on the back for the kids to ride. But that Schwinn 10-speed was kind of difficult to ride after a while, and gathered dust eventually in the garage. And then I took a trip about 2006. We went up to Mackinac Island. Anybody who's been there, no cars allowed. So I rented a coaster bike, rode around the island, realized it did 8 miles. Whoa, incredible. But then I researched a more comfortable bike, found one I really liked, and it sat in the garage gathering dust. But probably to use what Tony was talking about, sometimes the best things come from the worst of times. This was a date. It's my date. This is the date I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And so the first thing I had to do was say, what is this? I don't know anything about it. Nobody in the family's had it. Do some very scientific research. So the scientific research I did was to get the book from Michael J. Fox, who, as you might know, was diagnosed very early. I learned two important things from his book. First, you don't die from Parkinson's, you die with it. In other words, it says, I'm not going to fall over tomorrow. And the second is a boutique disease, meaning it's a different story for every single person. Shortly after that, I was in the Atlanta airport. You've all seen this kind of series. And Michael Fox obviously has a great deal of optimism. And I think most who know me say I possess a fair amount of that myself. So I came up with an initial motto. It's like, my initial motto was, kind of sucks, but let's go on. And I figured that probably should do some good things. I mean, I did start doing the medical route and all that. But I thought, well, probably should lose some weight, all of that, get fit. And I was fortunate to find a phenomenal class on bike handling skills called Cycling Savvy in Orlando. Actually had them present to the Orlando Chart Conference because their instructional design was so incredible and the way they dealt with adult learners. And it gave me the comfort and confidence to ride whenever and wherever I wanted. One of the things that came out of that is I was given a trailer of a documentary that was being put together. It was a story about a gentleman named Larry Smith who, at age 42, and as a captain of chief of police in a town in Connecticut, was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Now, that's still what's considered early onset. He knew that responsibly he couldn't continue to do the job that he was doing, so he and his wife decided to move and went to, of all places, Vermillion, South Dakota. Partly because she's a university professor, there's a great tenured opportunity there, and they went there. Larry was still pretty active and busy, so he decided, well, I got to do something, and he kind of made something out of a hobby of his, which is baking bread. In 2003, Oprah named it the best bread in America. But the trailer that I saw talked about an event that Larry had decided to do. And they had always been active, hiking and biking and all kinds of things. Larry had gotten to a point that he couldn't ride a two-wheeled bike anymore because his balance was a challenge, so he'd go onto a three-wheeled recumbent bike made by a company called Catchreich, which is out of Orlando. And he told Betty, he said, "I'd like to do something big while I still can." So she says, "What does big mean, Larry?" He says, "Let's ride across America." She goes, "Yeah, let's throttle that back a little bit." So what he did decide to do, however, was to ride across the state of South Dakota, about a 300-mile journey. And as they put that trip together, just turns out, as fate will be, that his niece and her husband were documentary filmmakers, so they filmed the preparation for it, interviews with some of the best thought thinkers on the topic at the time, and put this into motion. And when I saw that clip, I said, I got to be part of that, and made a point of going up to be part of it. So let me show you a bit of an interview that recently completed with a group called Growing Bolder, which talks about taking whatever you have and making the most of it. And it's kind of an interesting combination of Larry's story and mine.
From South Dakota Public Broadcasting, I'm Paul Guggenheimer, and this is Dakota Midday. Next week, Vermilion's Larry Smith will embark on a 270-mile bike ride from Aberdeen to Vermilion. What makes this trip remarkable is that despite being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 19 years ago, Larry is riding a three-wheeled recumbent bicycle.
Larry Smith never set out to be an inspiration, but as Parkinson's disease continued to steal control of his body, Larry's resolve kept getting stronger. Parkinson's ripped away much of his independence. He knows it's a battle that he will eventually lose, but it's one he will never give in to. It's why he decided to set off on an unlikely quest, riding his recumbent bike across the state of South Dakota. And he challenged anyone with a disability to join him.
Has to decide your wheelchairs and your walkers. If you can, join me for at the ride of your life.
Word of Larry's mission spread quickly. His friends rallied in support.
Could I get your autograph sometime, Larry?
A film crew covered it all. The result is an eye-opening, award-winning documentary called Ride with Larry. They captured everything from pedaling on in a cold, driving rain to Larry collapsing in the road and watching him struggle to get right back up, as his wife says he does every single time.
I mean, you can avoid falls by staying in a wheelchair. But if you do that, what kind of life do you have? It's not a life.
John Alexander wants a life too, but now he's not sure what lies ahead.
I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2010. A surprise that I wasn't expecting. No one in the family has it, and I wasn't anticipating that being the case at all.
In fact, he wasn't sure what to anticipate. Word of Larry's story reached him all the way in Florida. John also loves to ride. There was that instant connection, but he was drawn to Larry's story for an unsettling reason. Was Larry's life John's future? He couldn't help but wonder if it was only a matter of time before he'd be riding down the very same road. What did he think when he saw Larry?
This person is fairly far along in the condition, and yet he's able to ride a bike.
What did that mean to you?
That was a big boost. That was a big inspiration. And I said, as soon as I saw the trailer, I've got to be part of that.
It was one thing John had been searching for since his diagnosis, and he found it in Larry. That glimmer of hope that no matter how bad things get, if Larry could have a life, so could he. John decided right away to fly out, to get a bike, and be part of the Ride with Larry.
First days of the ride, and this on the film still causes waterworks. First day of the film was below 50 degrees, horizontal wind, over 30 mile an hour winds and horizontal rain. And he goes, let's ride. And straight into the wind and the rain. And just keeps doing it. And to spend some time, one of my proudest moments on that ride was, they said, have John come up front, and I, got to ride the front row, and just Larry and I just out for a ride, in spite of it all.
And what does that mean to you?
It means that we're kind of making our own choices, making our own decisions, and taking things into our own hands.
It means hanging on to independence, the same thing he first felt as a little boy when he'd climb on his bike and take off down the sidewalk. Independence. It's a memory that's become more cherished, a feeling that's become more precious as his disease slowly peels pieces of that independence away. John likes to go back to those boyhood memories. Just like that old bike, the one he rides today isn't the fanciest one in the neighborhood, but he loves it just the same and spends as much time on the trail as he can.
By this time next month, I will have ridden 3,000 miles. So I've ridden across the country 10, 25, 40, 50 miles at a time. And
You're proving something to your disease, to your doctors,
Right.
and to yourself.
yeah, to the doctor said on my last visit, he said, I really think there is something to that exercise thing.
Still, John can't help but wonder what is going to happen to him. He shakes so much more now. How bad is it going to get? How big of a burden is he going to become to his wife and kids, the ones he's supposed to be taking care of?
Now sometimes my son, my daughter, my wife are there for me. And that means a lot. It gives me reason to keep going and do the best I can with what I've got.
John says he's figured out the best strategy is to focus on the present, to deal with whatever comes one day at a time. His mantra?
It's to live well today.
You like that, don't you?
I love that.
Something else is how, in a very strange way, his disease pushed John in directions he never expected.
In a way, Parkinson's has given you,
It's propelled me to do some other things.
it's added to your life.
Absolutely. I've gotten to a point where, and people find this hard to believe, that for me, I actually consider Parkinson a blessing and a calling. That there's something about this that I was meant to go through an experience and to share with people, and to get as much knowledge as possible to pass that along to other individuals.
That's the attitude that allows people like John Alexander and Larry Smith to live fulfilling and meaningful lives, no matter what kind of challenges we all may face.
And why worry about what you don't know
Right,
when today you can get on your bike
exactly.
and go?
And go and ride. Thank you. So everybody has something going on. Every one of you, and if it's not yourself personally, it's somebody you know, somebody in your family. And I think it really is about choosing how you're going to approach what does come your way. John Isbell talked about personal and professional blending these days, and this has never been a better example for me than this whole experience. There was naturally an opportunity to raise some money when I did the ride. And I started to do it, and friends and family were generous. And I reached out to a person that many of you know, Amanda Height. And I said, Amanda, I'm going to be raising money for something that's to do with Parkinson's. She said, stop right there. She says, my grandfather has Parkinson's. He's the most important person in my life. The next day, she tweeted out to 30,000 people. And I started immediately getting donations that were emails that I didn't recognize, and I knew it was coming from them. When we finished the ride on the last day, went back to my room to just check what the total board was. And I had to keep increasing the amount. And there was a donation for $351, an odd amount. I called Amanda and said, this has got to be one of your people. And I later learned it was a gentleman named Scott Stratton, who's an incredible person in unmarketing. And he had been speaking to Amanda that day and said, hey, isn't your friend doing that ride today? Let's put it over the top right now. CHART has naturally, as many of you have heard people talk about, offered so much. I had the opportunity to serve on the board of CHART for 3 years. So in this past fall, I was invited to join another board, the board of the National Parkinson Foundation in Central Florida, and we put on an event. They wanted to put on an event. It's called Moving Day. It's done around the country. And it's a walk for Parkinson's, but also showing all kinds of different movements, because movement has been proven to be very helpful in curtailing symptoms. And so when they said, "Hey, we want to do this thing. We don't know much about it. Can you do it?" I can do that because I've been to chart. But I really like this expression too. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balance, you must keep moving. From Albert Einstein, so you can't go too wrong there. I did come up with a better motto, I think, than "kind of sucks." And that was, I still like that though, so that's all right. If you want to tweet that one, that's okay. Hashtag kind of sucks. But this was called "Keep Calm, Hug Often, and Pedal On." And actually put that together as a part of a program. This is a program that I do through the Davis Finney Foundation. And the purpose is an event that I created called Grandparents Ride, to honor for people who have a grandparent that they care about, like Amanda, or for me to show some resolve to my granddaughter. So the message is definitely to live well today, to choose that you're going to live well today and every day. So I'll extend an invitation. Who wants to go for a bike ride? And you might see some fun things. Yep. That's a cool picture. The last image is actually, it was on our local trail. And just going along one day, and coming at me were two high-wheel bikes, the old penny farthing kind of bikes. But one of the people that's in our community builds those, and there it is. She and her daughter were riding the other way. But again, it's a matter of choice. Take what you have, and when things happen, say kind of sucks. Thank you.
Desire, love, and empty things, just a chance.